we're going to get into that. But one of the things I want to talk about is Pairsoft's suite of products offerings that we have. Whether you are just concerned about your AP process or you also have a procurement requisition need as well, Pairsoft has a full suite of offerings that will take you from the requisition procurement through the AP, travel expenses, all the way to document management. In the future, up on the roadmap, we have payments coming out as well as predictive analytics. So this is just kind of an overview of who Pairsoft is and what we can offer in terms of that automation from procurement all the way to pay. But today, as I mentioned, we're going to focus mainly on that AP process and the pain and time-consuming area that tends to be. So the first reason that we believe it's time, and you probably will agree, to automate your process is to get control around the whole control of the internal processes that you have or don't have. They might be failing you in terms of having those checks and balances on who's doing what, where a document is. Can you find it? You've got workflow or people who are approving documents that are working remotely, in and out of the office. How do you notify them? All of those things will fail you if you're using paper. And when I say paper, I don't necessarily mean the tangible paper, although there might be some of you who are on the line who are still passing paper around. But if you are using email to do that, even just that can eliminate any checks and balances around your process. Who has a document? Who are you waiting to get that document from? Maybe you need multiple levels of approval. And so what's happening is when you send an invoice out for approval via email, they send it back to you saying, yes, it's okay. You open it up and go, oh, it's over a certain dollar amount. Now you have to email that back out and somehow keep the thread of those emails together to know that you got approval on both levels from the appropriate people. That is failing you because it's so much time needed to keep that under control. And most times you're probably not able to do that, or it's taking too much time away from all the other things that you have to do. So if you are experiencing any of those things that I've just mentioned, you can say, check, yep, we need to investigate this a little bit more. The second reason that it might be important to automate is because of the delayed approvals that you're getting, and they're costing you. Whether they're costing you with late fees because you're not getting those invoices back in time, and so you're now being incurred those late fees from your vendors, or maybe you're missing some early payment discounts, right? There are vendors that are doing that now, particularly with this, with the last few years that we've experienced. Companies are starting to get ramped up and they want to get back to business as normal. And so they're doing some incentives to get their cash flow on the vendor side moving along, right? So they're encouraging their customers, hey, we'll give you a certain percentage off your invoice if you pay it within inside of a certain time period. Well, if you're sending invoices out via email and not having any idea of what's out there and when those due dates are and what those early pay discounts are, you're losing money, right? It's costing you. And because of that, the reason that you can't do that is because of that lack of visibility of where the documents are in a process. Also, you might have invoices coming in from different avenues, right? Maybe they're going to a specific individual, the vendor sending that to a specific individual, and it sits in their inbox for a few days before it actually comes to your email inbox, right? Well, if you can centralize all of that incoming of the documents from your vendors, maybe to a central email address that a system like PaperSafe can monitor and bring them in, you're going to have instant visibility as to where the document is, even if it's just sitting in your to-do list of things to process out, right? So all of those things are going to cost you money and time. I'm going to jump into the software towards the end of this presentation and kind of show you a few of the things that I'm talking about. But those are two areas that I believe by implementing an automated system will immediately give you a return on your investment just by freeing up some time that you have and also taking advantage of those early discounts or eliminating those late fees. The third reason that you should be automating is that the efficiency around the AP process. There's a huge cost around that. And the efficiency isn't around the individuals. No, they're very efficient. I used to be an accounts payable admin, so I know how efficient you have to be to keep the ball rolling, right? You have to be on top of those invoices. You have to know where they are. And if you can actually limit the time that it takes you to answer inquiries or take away the time that it takes you to do data entry, you're going to become more efficient. So one of the terms that you've probably heard over the last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years is AP transaction automation. That's a big fancy term for eliminating manual data entry. So if the invoices can come to a central location, get deposited into an inbox, we call it an inbox in Pairsoft, and through the magic of, or the technology of OCR, optical character recognition, pulling values and data off of the invoice so that you don't have to key it in, imagine how efficient you're going to be. A lot of times what we find is that accounts payable, there's busy times and there's low, times that aren't as busy. But during those busy times, a lot of times companies have to bring in additional staff members, whether it's a temp to help accounts payable or somebody from a different task area in the accounting department to help them, whether it's filing a document or doing that manual data entry or that next bullet, matching the PO to the bill of lading. So if those of you who are out there who do that, you've got to make sure that the invoice comes when it comes in, that yes, we've received those goods. And yes, we have the packing slip, and now you've got to do that matching, and you have to create the transaction manually inside of Dynamics. Pairsoft can do all of that for you and eliminate all of that manual process that you have around the entering of the documents or the data into your dynamic system, matching that PO to the bill of lading, to the invoice, tracking down that invoice. So now you've gotten that call from the vendor, hey, where is that document? Now you've got to go through your emails and try to find out who you sent it to. Oh, no, I sent it to somebody else because they were out of the office. All of those inefficiencies, not because of the person, but because of the way internal processes are working now without an automated solution, is costing and driving up the cost of processing an invoice. And so we're going to kind of go through that in just a minute. But one of the things I like to show is this cost savings, right? These are industry standard costs on average across the country, right? So depending on where you are in the country, it could be a lot more expensive than it might be in, the Midwest or something like that. But on average, without any tool, meaning you're just getting invoices in, whether they're electronic or via the mail, and you're scanning them and attaching them to an email and sending them out, on average, it costs your company $15 to process just one invoice from beginning to end, from the receipt until it gets entered into your dynamic system and filed, right? That piece of paper is filed. If you use the PO system, and you've got requisitions and receiving and all of that, look at how much that cost jumps up, right? $89 to process one PO related invoice. But go over to that second to the last column. With a fully automated cloud-based solution, Pairsoft's offering of Pairsoft, it drops your cost to process an invoice by 85%. That's huge. You're going to see an immediate return on investment by implementing Pairsoft. Now, what's that going to do? That's going to free up accounts payables time from doing all of that mundane keying, filing, tracking down the invoices to do the job that probably is best suited for their talents. And that's investigating new vendors to give you better deals, negotiating terms and conditions so that you can take advantage of those early discount pays. All of those things are using the skills that you have within you and eliminating the mundane skills, right? So that's just a little glimpse into the cost that you all are incurring to process invoices without a solution like PaperSave. The fourth reason it's time to automate is you're growing. And that is excellent news, especially coming out of what we've all just come out of. We were talking a little earlier before we started the webcast here, is that California now has lifted all of their mandates, and that's great. Maybe some people will start coming back into the offices and not just 1 or 2 times a week. Maybe you'll all get back together. Maybe some industries will always work from home, except for the accounting people who seem to always need to go into the office for some reason or another. But you're growing, and that's great. But guess what grows when you grow? The number of invoices, right? The number of things that you have to handle manually, the number of invoices you're keying in, the number of late fees that you could possibly incur. So growing is great, but it puts more demand on a probably already taxed accounting system or accounting department without these automated systems, right? So if you already have PaperSave in place, or you go to put PaperSave in place and you grow, guess what? Your workload doesn't have to grow because PaperSave has taken away a lot, again, as I mentioned, all of that mundane tasks that you do, allowing you to focus on the things that are truly important to your role in your accounting department. All right. The last reason we think that it's very important to automate is your audit didn't go well last time. Again, being a former accounts payable admin, I dreaded that time of year because not only did I have to keep up with my workload that I had to do all the time, and just for content purposes, I've been doing this job for 15 years. So prior to that, I was accounts payable. So we were all manual. If any of you on the line know the term, those ledger sheets, that's what I was using. So everything was manual. But my audits, they always were a headache because I had to manually pull everything. I always took a photocopy of everything so that I knew I got it back, right? And then I'd have to file it back. Here's a statistic for you. 1 out of every 10 documents are either lost or misfiled. So think about the number of invoices that you process per year, right? And then do that math. You're all in accounting, so you know what that math is. But if 1 out of every 10 are lost or misfiled, it costs your company, if that's one of the documents that the auditors want to see and you need to recreate it or get it again, on average, it costs $200 to recreate or get that invoice back. That's about average of what it costs to get that document that's been lost or misfiled. So again, I'm going to talk to you about how PaperSave, from the moment it enters into your organization, again, whether it's via email as an attachment or a piece of paper, it gets captured into PaperSave and it's there. Whether you process it and associate it to a transaction inside of Dynamics or not, you're going to be able to find it. Why? Because we do OCR on it, optical character recognition. And then when we complete the transaction, all you have to do is navigate within your accounting system to do it. Also, for those of you who are on the line that utilize Dynamics GP, imagine doing your audit via Smart List, right? Getting all the documents that your auditors want to see by creating a Smart List, and then with 2 clicks of the button, getting all of those documents. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But those are the 5 reasons that we believe it's time to automate. I'm going to go to one last slide, and then I'm going to jump into the software for about the last 5 or 8 minutes to just show you some of the features that I've talked about. But when I talked about how much it cost, when you implement Pairsoft, Pairsoft by Pairsoft, let's say you average 10,000 invoices a year. This is what the annual cost is for processing those documents. Your annual cost, if you implement Pairsoft, is this, right? Look what you're saving your organization. That's huge, right? That's a lot of savings. So you're going to be able to see a return on investment right away. Oops, I didn't want to click on that. We're not going to ask questions yet. We're going to actually come to Pairsoft's screen. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about, right? First thing is that eliminating manual data entry. So I'm going to go into my workflow. Now listen, these are going to be quick little snippets. If you want a full demonstration of Pairsoft and how it might fit within your organization's needs, we can do that. So these are just quick little snippets into what Pairsoft can do. But imagine trying to find, imagine eliminating data entry. That's the first thing I want to talk about. So Pairsoft can monitor an email address. So with all of those invoices that are being emailed to you, have your vendors say you're implementing a new system, and if you want your invoices paid in a timely manner, email them to this email address. Now it is your email address. All Pairsoft is doing is looking to that email address, and we're pulling in the attachments. And when they land in the first step of the workflow, all of the data is going to be entered in. So these invoices have come in various times, and you can see that the OCR, optical character recognition, has pulled in values. And what that means is that we're looking on the invoice for the vendor information, vendor name, address block, phone number. We take that and we validate it against your data inside of your dynamic system. We pull in the invoice date, invoice number, dollar amount. And if you're using any defaults on your vendor card for GL distribution or terms and conditions or anything like that, Pairsoft, once it finds that vendor name and due date or invoice date, we're going to start populating the GL distribution, due date, pay date. We can also do POs and line items and all of that. We'll talk about that on a one-on-one. And then at this point, all you need to do is route it to somebody for approval. Now I'm going to type in somebody's name here, and we're just going to say that we're going to send this to Miles. I always pick on Miles Hamilton. He's my go-to approver in a lot of things. So I'm going to route this to him. I didn't have to go through individual emails. I haven't had to do any data entry yet. Now I might have to put in some GL distribution if you don't use defaults, right? Or there's no default information. I can type in, a number. So if I know that the account number is, something that looks like this, if you see the numbers start popping up, Pairsoft is communicating constantly with your accounting system, your dynamics, whether it's GP or Business Central, right? So I put that in there. And then again, I can route it off to that individual for approval. Never leaving the Pairsoft screen or having to flip back and forth between my emails. Pairsoft is that central repository that's capturing those documents. Now, right now, again, if it's all a manual process, you're having to remind people that they've got invoices for approval because you haven't gotten them back. Maybe you got a call from a vendor or somebody's asking where it is. And if you're like me, I used to have a red folder and I knew what things I sent out and didn't get back. Well, guess what? You're going to have approvers that are getting their own emails, and they're going to be able to come in here. Now I get to see everyone's. I'm an admin in my system, which is going to be a good thing for you all. But if I'm playing Miles, we'll just narrow this down to Miles real quick. Miles will get emails. See these little bubbles that are coming up on my corner screen of my screen? That's Pairsoft sending me an email, letting me know I've got documents for approval. So Pairsoft is going to notify your team members that you just routed something via email to, or excuse me, via workflow to them. They're going to get that email. They're going to be able to come into PaperSave through their computer or mobile device if they like to work from their mobile app. If you've got people working out and about, right, they can use their mobile phone or iPad or tablet. But really, all they have to do is hit approve or reject. Now, you can give them the rights to put in GL distribution. We'll talk about that at another time, but they hit approve. And where does this invoice go? Well, that depends on your workflow. Remember, I said that right now you might not be able to put in any controls over routing things over a certain dollar amount for that second level of approval, and it's going back and forth. I call that the ping pong effect. You send it out via email, they send it back to you, you send it back out for that second level. PaperSave can be configured to look at a dollar amount and who's approving it and send it off to somebody else if it needs that second level. But the person who hits this approve button doesn't have to worry about that because that's all automated in the workflow. So they get notifications. You don't have to be the reminder, constantly, picking up the phone and saying, get in there and approve things. But here's another great feature. Remember, I had also mentioned, right, that individuals, if you're doing it all manually, you have no insight as to where a document is. Imagine being able to go into a workflow. You don't care about the step of the workflow, like validation or approval. You want to see everything that's sitting out there waiting for approval because you have to find it, right? So you've got these pieces of information here, and now I can filter and I can go in here and I can say, I want to find the vendor that is, let's say VERITI. Let's pull up this guy. I can now take these 100 and some odd documents and narrow them down to just 5, find out where they are, and call Miles and say, hey, I need you to get in there and approve it, right? Or filter by date and see which ones are coming due so that you can make sure that they get approved. The ones that have an early pay discount, you have insight as to where the document is at any given time. That's pretty powerful, right? I'm going to undo my filter here. So remember, I said that there were a lot of mundane things that accounts payable do: filing, manual data entry, constantly tracking down people who haven't approved things. Well, we can eliminate all of that at that point. And how does the information now get into your accounting system? Well, my last step of my workflow is AP review. I call this the last right of refusal. And at this point, I get to see, again, maybe you had somebody else put in the GL distribution, all of those checks and balances, right? You don't want the same people performing the same tasks. Maybe this is kind of the separation. You have the front person validator put in the GL. The last person maybe is the one who is going to eventually sign the checks or what have you. They can be the one that then hits this submit button and it creates the transaction with inside of whatever your ERP system is. Now, I am going to change some information here. PaperSave can check for duplicates. Not going to go into that now. Don't have time. I'm going to hit submit. And at this point, PaperSave is immediately taking all of this information and creating the transaction. Real quick, we're going to jump into GP. If you're using another ERP system, PaperSave behaves the same way. It just might be navigating and getting to the transaction. But I'm gonna go into a payables transaction here, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to flip to voucher. I'm going to go to the end. So that's how immediate it is. It communicated and created the transaction inside of GP as soon as I hit that submit button. And then this bubble down here is telling you as the person who's looking at this transaction that there's a document. I click on it and there's the document. That's pretty efficient, right? One last thing I want to talk about is that smart list. Again, if you are using maybe a Business Central, one of the things with inside of Business Central is that you're going to be able to do the lists and show the documents. Well, let's see why is my smart list not opening up here? Well, we don't have time to worry about that. So we're going to go out to PaperSave search. And you can create a search in PaperSave that will give you all of the documents that meet a certain criteria, just like with inside of Dynamics. I'm going to load one up. So let's say I want to look at all of my invoices between a certain dollar amount. I can pull those documents up. That's not a good one. Let's pull a bigger one here. Let's see. Let's do this one. All right. So we're going to pull these up. Maybe these are the documents that the auditors want to see. I just pulled 127 documents that met this simple criteria here, right? When I do that, I can now export that out into an Excel spreadsheet, give it to the auditors. And when the auditors look at it, they're going to have a hyperlink right within the Excel spreadsheet. Remember, pulling it for the audit. They can click on this hyperlink and it's going to take them right to the document. They don't need access to your accounting system. They just need access to PaperSave, and you need to supply them with the list, and they can see who approved it. This PaperSave date, time, and user stamps. I know that that was a lot of information in a very short period of time, but those are just some things that are going to be able to show you and give you the efficiency that you need to make your job more streamlined, right? I'm going to share my screen in this mode. And again, answer those reasons on why it's time to automate.